Hey, it's the Sporting Tribune today, recording on a Friday the 13th. So let's get. Yo, it's Adrian Hernandez. Welcome inside the Sporting Tribune today, recording on a very spooky Friday the 13th. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Of course, Believe Sports Network, Fubu Sports, The Bet Las Vegas, ESPN Radio, Southern California, Hawaii Sports Radio Network. And here's the deal. We just go straight into an interview, but I do need to brag, okay? Because no matter what part of the country that you're watching this, I need to make an announcement because I have an agenda and I haven't talked about it a lot since we've gone to not only just on the radio, but on your television screens. And that agenda is, in my opinion, it's not even an agenda, it's just a fact, okay? When it comes to sports in this great country in the USA, Las Vegas is the sports capital of the world. We just got done with a week, not even a weekend. We just got done with a week of ESPN broadcasting from this city for 5 straight days for 5 different events. Saturday night, UFC Fight Night. Sunday, game 1 of the WNBA Finals. Monday Night Football from Allegiant Stadium in one of the ugliest games of the year with the Raiders and Packers, which, by the way, while that was going on, literally across the street at T-Mobile Arena, not even being broadcasted on ESPN, you had the Lakers in town, LeBron, Anthony Davis taking on Ben Simmons and the Brooklyn Nets. Then Tuesday, take the basketball court away from T-Mobile Arena, put the hockey ice back on, and the Golden Knights opened up their season. They raised the banner. They celebrated one last time as Stanley Cup champions, and they opened up the new season. And then we closed it out on Wednesday night with game 2 of the WNBA Finals. And then speaking of those WNBA Finals, the Aces are up 2-0. Sunday, ABC in Brooklyn at a sold-out Barclays, where it's going to be louder for the Liberty than it's going to be for any Brooklyn Nets game. It's a chance for the Aces to sweep and win back-to-back championships, which hasn't happened in the WNBA in like over 20 years when the LA Sparks and Lisa Leslie and all them did it. But if they do that, not only with this week and these events that I just said, but now you got back-to-back parades from the Aces to the Golden Knights to the Aces. Man, could you imagine if we had a good football team too professionally? Could you imagine? And by the way, in this whole monologue, I didn't mention F1. I didn't mention the Super Bowl. I didn't mention the flirtation and other comments that LeBron made this week in Las Vegas, which you can check out on the Sporting Tribune. I know you see the socials all around the screen, where he was asked by us, why Vegas? Why do you want to bring the NBA team here, which will be happening here shortly? And his answer was correct, because why wouldn't you? This is the sports capital of the world. I didn't even mention the baseball team that's coming. If it's not the A's, something's going to happen. I think it's going to be the A's, and it's very disgusting. And to be honest, people here in Las Vegas don't want the A's. Like, it's not that big of a deal. We already got too much going on, but hey, it's neither here nor there. It's a Sporting Tribune today. Thank you for listening to my agenda. And now we got to get to the weekend. Another big week in football, another big weekend in college football. Arguably the biggest game in college football this weekend, USC versus Notre Dame. And with that, let's kick off around the Tribune as we check in with Josh Fisher, our USC beat writer. This is the Sporting Tribune today. All right, Josh, a struggle slightly against ASU, a struggle against Arizona. Where are you with this team right now, man?
Struggle with Colorado. It's been a struggle, dude. The Pac-12, after they dominated Stanford, the Trojans have been struggling. And look, if they kick the field goal, they don't go to overtime last week. That was a huge snafu. Caleb probably had his worst game as a Trojan last week, at least throwing the ball for sure. Rice has been great, but they have a really a test that's, of course, very tough. You're going to South Bend and you're playing Notre Dame and you're playing one of the most veteran, decorated quarterbacks in all of college football right now in Sam Hartman and a hungry coach in Marcus Freeman. But I don't think that team is not where we thought it would be, the Fighting Irish. After they blew that game with Ohio State, they barely escaped Duke. And then they lost to Louisville, who's a lot better than people thought, of course. I'm not saying they're this year's TCU, but, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are what people thought. So I still think this is a game the Trojans should win. It's a game where they should put up 40-something points again, even though the Fighting Irish defense should be one of the tougher defenses they faced. And I like Alex Grinch a lot. He is, when he talks to the media, he is the nicest guy, and I'm really rooting for him. But they have a defensive problem. There's no other way to shake it, man. It just doesn't make sense. Sorry, but with all the tackles for a loss, the sacks, like the pressure they put on, it just doesn't make sense. They can't get out of drives.
And to your credit, like Lincoln Riley defended the defense this weekend and so this week, I should say, and he said exactly what you said. If they make the field goal kick, some of this talk doesn't go anywhere. But I'm like, yeah, but I watched the game, and it was still a struggle, regardless of if he makes the kick or not.
Mm-hmm.
And not even defensively, kind of some of the question marks, and even like the weird thing with the press and taking away the guy's credential and then giving it back. Like, where are you with the head coach right now?
I'm fine with the head coach. The head coach is the best, is the best offensive mind arguably in college football. Like, he is Lincoln Riley. Like, it didn't, I don't think it looks. Venables has done a really good job turning this OU program around, and I think people are starting to jump down Lincoln Riley's throats for that, as if he didn't make multiple playoffs, would have multiple Heisman winners. Like, his resume should speak for itself. I think the only trouble he could run into ultimately, like if this defense struggles again against Notre Dame, and then they have to go play Penix, they have to go play Bo Nix, like he is going to have to unfortunately answer for keeping Coach Grinch at the helm if he continues to struggle. Like, you can't fill the room with your boys. So Grinch has to deliver, or else he has to be gone. It's just ultimately that's what it comes down to. Like, the USC Trojans put up the amount of, like, they put up, again, it's in triple overtime, but they put up 43 points. Like, the offense and that was the worst Caleb Williams has played throwing the football we've ever seen. Like, the offense has done its job every single game. Like, 41 points to Arizona. Like, come on, man. Like, and the thing about Colorado is they let them back in that game. The thing about Arizona State, they could have put them away. Like, they could put these teams away, but this defense just lets teams back in the game. I mean, like I'm looking at the stat: 8 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. Like if you're the Trojans and you're giving up 41 points and you're getting to the quarterback like that, like, you have to be kicking yourselves again, dude. Like, Arizona State, 16 third down opportunities. You have 16. That is so many. 18 against Colorado. That is so many. Get off the field, man.
Joshua, this is the first time on the show I feel like a therapist, and I'm just letting you talk it out because it's true. But I will say, all the question marks and everything that's been said leading up to this game with Notre Dame, you win this game, you have an impressive showing. A lot of that talk goes away. So I need your prediction for Saturday night.
It's interesting. This is the first time that the Trojans, and I want to see, I'm looking it up as we're going. I want to see what the line's moving to, right? And I may not get it in the amount of time we have allotted here. It's the first time the Trojans aren't favored, So the Trojans are +3 right now against Notre Dame. I'm trying to see, most of the bets coming in from the public are on Notre Dame. So, which is what you like. It's not like it's 70. It's 55% of the public right now is on Notre Dame. It's looking like. So that's what you want to see if you're a Trojans fan, where people going against that from a betting perspective. I think USC. I don't think this is where USC has their snafu. I think ultimately, based on whatever I'm seeing right now from this team, I think ultimately their demise comes in Eugene, unfortunately, in November. I just can't get behind them beating the Ducks on the road right now.
And no matter what happens, Sporting Tribune, we got you covered. This man right here, Joshua Fisher, has you covered with all the great content. And at some point, we're going to get you on the show for a full interview. It's coming, I promise you. But as always, Josh, thank you so much for the time.
Got you, brother. Anytime, anything. We'll catch you later.
And hey, look, USC's defense is going through some things. Fans are frustrated, but I promise you this. I promise you that frustration is nowhere near the amount of frustration and sadness and pain and agony and defeat that Dodgers Nation is facing right now after getting eliminated and swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. And before we bring in our Dodgers beat writer here at the Sporting Tribune, I just need to do one thing, which is laugh my ass off. You guys did it again. That Mickey Mouse trophy you guys won doesn't count. Now I feel much better. I'm going to get off the therapy couch. Grant, you get in the therapy couch. Joining us, Grant Mora, our Dodgers beat writer here at the Sporting Tribune. Grant, how are you doing, friend?
Mentally, physically, spiritually, not very well. It's funny, Adrian, you mentioned that Mickey Mouse title. Somebody on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, they had the Dodgers World Series ring and they had a diamond tester to it, and that diamond tester was just going off because it was fraudulent. And you know what? I completely agree with that now. I didn't believe it before. I was like, oh yeah, we got a title, 2020. Hey, we got a title, first one. Now it's looking a little bit more. It's looking even more fraudulent than, I know you hate this to. We hate to bring this up. The Lakers bubble title, but man, Dodger Nation all across social media. I'm seeing people just the memes, the frustration, the anger, the radio in LA, local radio is just going crazy about this. But the thing is, Adrian, I don't know where do you go after this. Do you fire the manager? Do you replace players?
Hold on.
What do you do?
Time out. Before we get into all of that,
All right,
because
all
it's
right.
not just LA tuning in right now, and baseball is kind of a regional sport, and there's been chaos going on in the playoffs with all these 100-win teams struggling, and there's complaints, and we'll get to that here in a second. I just want to know what the hell happened when it comes to this series against Arizona and how this happened.
It was the offense, Adrian. The offense didn't show up. Well, actually, I can point to a plethora of different things. Number one is the offense, because if you don't hit the baseball and you don't score runs, which is the main objective of baseball, you don't win games. And the starting pitching can give up as many runs as they want. And with their 25.08 ERA that the starting pitching had, which, if anyone knows baseball, that's not very good. With that ERA, you still won't win games, but if you can't score runs, you still won't win games either. So if you have a guy like Mookie Betts making $300 and whatever million that he is, and you have Freddie Freeman making $162 million over 6 years, and they only go 1 for 21 combined in the entire series, it's not a recipe for success. It's not going to win. So yeah, Kershaw gave up 6 runs, Bobby Miller gave up 3, and Lance Lynn gave up 4. But giving up 3 runs and 4 runs, you would expect a team to score 4 or 5 when they win 100 games in the regular season, right, Adrian? Doesn't that make sense to you? An 100-win season for the 4th consecutive full year. I know we're going to take out that 2020 year, as you love to do. 4 consecutive 100-win seasons and 2 back-to-back duds in the first round. This one would, I'll say this right now, Adrian. This one was worse than last year. You get swept by an 84-win team that you're out. The Dodgers have way more talent on paper. This Diamondbacks team played with passion, energy, fire, the want. Torey Lovullo, the manager of the Diamondbacks, had these guys just playing with their head on fire. They looked like a team that just wanted it more. And that's, I think, what Dodger fans share with me, is that that's the sentiment, is that the Dodger players don't have that want, that passion, that fire that other teams have. That's what happened to them last year, and that's what happened to them this year again.
Hey, pal, you feel better?
No, but I had to get it out. I had to get it out,
Goodness
man.
gracious, that was a lot. And you know what? We'll go overtime here because it matches the moment, right? Okay, so after all of that, you kind of mentioned earlier before I cut you off that there's a lot of confusion. And look, man, the wound's open. The stitches haven't even been applied. They're not on the body. It's still bleeding. Okay, I get that, but this is why you're here, and this is why you cover the team. So I'm just gonna ask you right now. You're the GM, and as we head into the winters, we head into this off season. What is the plan? How would you attack this? And
Number
also,
one,
one thing. Sorry, Clayton Kershaw, compiler. Please continue.
number one, I would change the manager. And I know there's a lot of pushback on that. I would get rid of Dave Roberts, number one. You don't win 10 division titles in 11 years and only win one COVID shortened season title. You can't get away with it. If we switch the positions of him and, say, a Laker head coach, he would be gone after 3 years. This is a decade straight of him blowing it in the playoffs. That's number one. Number two, go after every starting pitching arm that you could possibly pay money for. Load up the Brinks truck, open up the back, and say, here's every piece of money that we have. Blake Snell, here's every piece of money that we have for an arm on the market. Go get a good starting pitcher, a veteran arm. That's what I would do. Number two. Number three, I would just instill a different philosophy. It's too analytical. It's too buddy-buddy. It's too business-like. You need an edge. You need toughness. You need that passion, that fire. And I know they brought in guys like Miguel Rojas. I know they brought in guys like Jason Hayward and Kike Hernandez. Fine, that's all great. They still didn't. Kike Hernandez did, and you know why he performed, Adrian? Is because he had passion. He had that fire in him. He was yelling in the dugout when he got that hit in Game 3. They need everyone to be like that. They need to have that thing in their heart that says, I don't care what we did in the years prior. I want it now. I want to go get that. I want a ring on my finger with the Dodgers. And I need to get players like that. That's why the Diamondbacks are good. That's why the Rangers are good. That's why the Astros are good. The Astros got caught for cheating. And after that, they said, we don't care. We're going to go win more. And that's the mentality that this team has to have. No more business-like, no more shaking hands, no more buddy-buddy. Let's go get it done. And it starts with the offseason. It really does. That's my three things.
Damn. I love this, man. For the first time in my career, you're kind of leaving me speechless. And before we get you out of here, and I didn't mean to, you're going through it this week, and I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to talk to you. But I do want to ask you about the topic at large when it comes to baseball, which is the insertion of the wild card, which is now giving some of these teams, mainly the 100-win teams, hello Orioles, hello Dodgers, Braves, some of these, the Rays, some of these struggles in this format. And like, where do you see that? Is it fair or not? Should they change it?
I do think they should change it, but I think they should change the NLDS. They shouldn't change the Super Wild Card round, whatever you want to call it nowadays. I know they have a bunch of different names for it. You'd make the NLDS 7 games, not 5. I mean, it's kind of a shame that these teams win 100 games over a 5-month period and they play a 5-game series. And look, there's no excuses for any of these teams. The Orioles blew it. The Braves might blow it. The Dodgers blew it. The Rays choked. Whatever you want to say about it. It's great that you have more teams that can compete for a playoff spot. That's why you see teams like the Diamondbacks and the Padres get in and make a run. And I think that's great for baseball. You need as many teams in the mix as possible. But when they get to that after that bye week that those 1 and 2 seeds have, I think a 7-game series should be their reward. You shouldn't go and have a 5-game series where you lose the first 2 and now basically the series over. When the Dodgers lost those first 2, I think everyone was kind of on the road. We're like, okay, the series is kind of over because all they have to do is win one more. If it was a 7-game series, 2-0, okay, 3-0, fine. Yeah, you're in a deep hole. You're still not done yet. And the Dodgers have the talent to do it. The Braves have the talent to do it. The Orioles have the talent to do it. I think you should be rewarded with a 7-game series in the NLDS, not a 5. And that's what the NBA did. The NBA said they had the 5-game series in the first round, and teams are starting to catch up. And then they're like, hold on, that doesn't make any sense. Give them a 7. And I think that's what the MLB should do.
And real quick, is this the most painful year, in your opinion, most painful disappointment of this past decade?
I wouldn't say that just because this was kind of a retool year anyways. You weren't supposed to win this many games. They were never supposed to win 100. And I know when you get to 100, you're supposed to win anyways. So that's why it hurts a lot. But I think 2019, when they just were unbelievable and they lost to the Nationals in the NLDS. I think 2022, when they lost to the Padres, which was last year, that was the team. They had Trey Turner and Freddie and Mookie and all the pitching was healthy. That was probably more hurtful just because, first of all, it was the Padres, which hate us and we hate them. And second of all, it was just the talent disparity, like the winning disparity was just so immaculate. So I think 2022 and 2019 were. This year, yeah, it hurts. Every year hurts when you lose this early, but not as much as when you have such an elite team on paper like last year and in 2019.
Good Lord. That's a lot of pain to go through as someone from Cleveland. I can sympathize with you, but I'm also going to laugh. And you know what? Before we go to break, just be sure to check out the Sporting Tribune. Of course, Grant is going to have a lot of work, not only on the Dodgers, but as we transition with the NBA season upon us. He'll be talking some hoops, hella hoops. And coming up next here on the Sporting Tribune today, Moe Moton, NFL writer from Bleacher Report, focuses on the Raiders, and that's exactly what we'll do. Raiders, Patriots, and McDaniels Belichick reunion. It's the Sporting Tribune today. Hey, it's the Sporting Tribune today, and for those that don't know, I just don't work here at the Sporting Tribune. I'm lucky enough to do radio in Las Vegas for Odyssey, which is where our next guest gets to join me, and this is where the connection grows, and I'm so happy to bring him in. He goes by the name of Moe Moton, who is joining us. He does a Raiders podcast for Odyssey called Silver and Black Today, but he also covers the NFL at large with Bleacher Report, Sportsnet, and a whole bunch of other places. He's everywhere. Moe Moton, thank you so much for joining us, brother. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Raiders got a win Monday. Half the crowd happy, half the crowd not so happy. We'll get to that later on, but happy to be joining you after Raiders W finally.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, we for those, again, I need to let people know. We talk a lot. We're heavily I'm starting the interview over again. Hold on. I don't like how I introed that. I might not even mention the connection, or mention it a little less slight. All right, take two. Hey, it's the Sporting Tribune today, and I am so happy to bring in someone who I've worked closely with and still do to this day, and bring him inside the Sporting Tribune universe in the Sporting Tribune today. A man who covers the NFL at large for Bleacher Report, Sportsnet, a plethora of other entities as well, specifically one that I hold near and dear to my heart. It's a podcast called Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey original podcast that focuses on Raider Nation, which finally they have some joy. There was a little bit to start the season, and then it's been a desert of sadness. A desert of sadness. Wait a minute. That would mean there'd be no sadness because it's a desert. Anyway, sometimes I'm not good with my words. Raider Nation is happy. Last Monday night, they pick up the W. Moe, welcome to the Sporting Tribune today. How are you?
Doing pretty well at the Raiders W. It's been too long. Been way too long. I know half the fan base wants to tank for Khalid, but we're going to have to pump the brakes on that. We'll talk about that a little later, but good to join you at the Raiders W finally.
No, I'm very excited, and since it is your first time here on the Sporting Tribune today, we're going to just have to talk about some things to get to know you. And for this one, I usually like to go super random, but since you're in Brooklyn right now, and that is where you reside, New York, I need to ask you a question because we just finished a run here in Las Vegas this past week, which I believe, I need to go triple check, but I believe it's the first time in ESPN history that ESPN broadcasted from Las Vegas for 5 straight days. It started Saturday with the UFC event, Sunday with the WNBA finals, Monday with Monday Night Football, Tuesday for the Golden Knights season opener as they raised the banner with their Stanley Cup trophy, and then Wednesday for game 2 of the WNBA finals. And it filled my heart with joy because I love to push my agendas, and my agenda is Las Vegas is the sports capital of the world. Since you are in New York, the Mecca, with those 20 professional teams over there, I have to ask you, how do you feel about that?
Hey, respect to Vegas, respect to the landscape and the destination for what it is. But New York is always going to be the Mecca. I mean, once the Knicks win their championship and hang their banner in the modern day, I know you're going to scrunch up your face at that.
That was an oxymoron phrase you just said.
Do you know how many people are going to be happy for the Knicks? Can you say that about any other sporting franchise? That the Knicks win, a lot of people would just be happy for the Knicks and not even be fans of the teams. That's how you know your sporting franchise is huge, and the Knicks haven't won very much in my lifetime. So there you go. But shout out to Vegas for they're definitely on the come up. They're definitely on the rise. If there was a most improved player award or a come up player of the year award, it would definitely go to Vegas in terms of sports cities.
So wait, so hold on a second. I need your power rankings because I mean, no disrespect. I mean, you could say maybe Dallas, Texas area has a lot of events, but it's New York, LA, and Vegas. Where are you putting it then?
New York is number one. It's got to be number one. LA is probably number two, in my opinion. I mean, the Dodgers, I know they're down 0-2 right now, but the Dodgers are another historic franchise. I would put Vegas in the top five. You didn't mention Chicago, but Chicago still got some,
Well,
the
here's the thing.
Cubs,
Here's the thing,
White
because
Sox,
it's not
Bulls.
just about the regular season though. It's
Mhm.
like, bruh, the Super Bowl's coming to Vegas, F1's coming to Vegas, all the Pac-12, all the conferences in the West Coast do their conference tournaments here or conference championships in college football. We had the NCAA March Madness. We had the first and second round last year. The women's Final Four is coming. The college football playoff, one of the semifinals, will be in Vegas, I believe, starting next year, and then within 3 years, we're getting like the national championship game itself will be here in Vegas. Boxing, hello, this is what the city was built on. Like, a WrestleMania is coming. Like, there's not a baseball team might be coming. The NBA tournament is coming. The summer league has been on and popping and has now become like a thing people need to go to every year. Like, when you start racking up all these different things, like, it's a lot, man.
Can Vegas get a basketball team, and then we could talk about top three? Can Vegas get a basketball team? I know it's been talked about, but can we do that?
Hold on.
An
Wait a second.
NBA team, an NBA
Counterpoint.
team, an
Counterpoint.
NBA team, and then let me
They
make that
might
clear.
not
An
have an
NBA.
NBA team. They might not have an NBA team, but the in season tournament's coming. I just mentioned summer league, and also the Las Vegas Aces are transforming the sport. Which you're in Brooklyn. I hope that you're going to game 3 or 4 at Barclays if there's any tickets left, because I know they support them heavy. But like they got a transformative WNBA team too for the time being. That's not too bad. They got the greatest women's basketball player on the planet on their squad in Asia Wilson. Like, it's not too bad if you're not gonna have an NBA team. And the Lakers were just here, by the way, for their preseason game. Like, it's a lot going on.
So if the Aces don't win the WNBA Finals, that change anything for you? And at all?
No, not
No,
at
but
all.
just the spectacle of just the fact that they won last year and they're going to be a powerhouse team for the unforeseen future.
And they'll be back. And also they've had a lot of injury. The fact that they've done as good as they have with the less players than they had last year is like super remarkable from like a basketball perspective. Um and the momentum and like they'll this is the thing now. And it's cool to like Brooklyn, the New York Liberty, and the Aces, like we now have the Yankees and Red Sox or the Yankees and Dodgers in terms of like, yo, they're here and they're going to spend money to be here and they want to win, which we really haven't had. So it doesn't change much. Although, like, bro, we've had 2 parades back to back. Like, and if we win, it's about to be 3 straight parades. If it wasn't for those damn Raiders, we'd be looking pretty good right now. But listen, I don't want to take up all the time arguing this because we could talk about it for days. These are good problems to have here in Vegas. And before we get to the Raiders, just want to go around the league with you. First question: is San Francisco going to lose a game this year?
They're definitely going to lose the game this year. I think we're past the whole undefeated season type of thing. We so happened to the Patriots a long time ago. I just, with the extra game added, it's hard to give your A game or A plus game for 17 games. Like it's not going to happen. I have San Francisco going to the Super Bowl, so I can definitely see them winning 14 games, but they're going to trip up somewhere. They're going to slip up somewhere. There are injuries. Debo sometimes can't stay healthy. Christian McCaffrey has a past injury history. I know he's balling now, looks like an MVP. But I think they win 14, 15 games.
Who is more at fault? Mac Jones, Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick easily. Have you seen the Patriots draft record? They can't draft a wide receiver to save their jobs. I don't remember the last wide receiver the Patriots have drafted and he actually worked out. I look, Mac Jones hasn't been great, but we've seen Mac Jones play at a pretty good level under Josh McDaniels, who was an offensive coordinator in New England. So we've seen decent Mac Jones. There's other reasons why he's taken steps back. Tell me, Adrian, tell me which Patriots wide receiver right now would be a starter on any other team in this league.
Okay.
Let me know.
Hold on
Let
a
me know.
second. Hold on a second.
Let me know.
for 20 years, including with Tom Brady, the only wide receiver that was really of any of any like other than Tom Brady, like his first 2-3 years when he came in for Bledsoe, was Randy Moss. Like, he made Edelman a Hall of Famer. And what's boy that was in Miami too? What's his name?
Wes Welker.
Yeah, Wes Welker. Like, come on, man. He kind of, you know what I'm saying? Some 7-Eleven employees really had it on and popping. So it's different. But I understand your point. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just weird to me, like the bashing of Bill Belichick when, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't think that quarterback's that good. I don't think like I would be more upset at some of the people that he's hired to be coaches on that staff than the performance of some of his players. And like, this man has been successful coaching all his life. Like the Browns were supposed to go to the Super Bowl the year that the team was moved to Baltimore. Like they were on Sports Illustrated. Like they were in the middle of a great season. Like if he did it in Cleveland, like let alone, I don't know, it's an odd thing. And of course, that's going to be the matchup next week for the Raiders with the reunion. And with that, let's dive into the Raiders fully here. I was, as I mentioned that the Lakers were here in town, I was covering the Lakers and Nets game because LeBron James. And I did not watch much of the game. So break it down and kind of what's your reaction with the Raiders winning?
My two biggest takeaways. One, Josh McDaniels does not trust Jimmy Garoppolo in that offense. There was a moment in the at the end of the second quarter going into halftime where Josh McDaniels could have called a timeout to give his offense more time to go down the field and score a touchdown or kick a closer field goal. They wound up settling for a long field goal, 50-plus yards. It was blocked. But they had to rush down the field. They had to clock it a couple of times because they didn't have a lot of time. They had about 40-something seconds or 30-something seconds when they could have had like a minute and a half or more if he had called timeout. So the counterpoint was, I should say, he didn't want to give the Packers back the ball before halftime and give them a chance to score and possibly tie it up. Okay, but then in the second half, late in the game, the Raiders have a chance. It's 4th and 1. All they have to do is get 1 yard. They get the 1 yard, they win the football game. What does Josh McDaniels do? He kicks a 52-yard field goal. And what happens? It misses. Now, I know Daniel Carlson is Mr. Automatic. He wasn't in front of his family at Allegiant Stadium for some reason. As I said, the previous field goal was blocked. But you're kicking a 52-yard field goal, and you have this $100 million plus offense, and you can't get one. You don't trust that $100 million plus offense to get 1 yard to close a football game. To me, that's a problem. You got Josh Jacobs. You brought him back on a modified franchise tag that he's making close to $12 million. You have Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers is balling. I know the offensive line hasn't been playing great. Jimmy Garoppolo, shaky, has more interceptions than touchdowns. But again, you have a $104 million plus offense, and you don't trust that unit to get a single yard to win you a football game. That's a problem.
I would also go ahead.
Really quick, I harped on the negative, but the positive is the defense has allowed one touchdown in the last 6 quarters. The defense is playing very well right now.
I just wanted to add one thing too, is that not only not going for it on 4th and 1 with the 5th most expensive offense in the league, but if he makes that field goal, it's still a 1-score game. So what are we doing? It was
exactly.
You're going to need to hire professional Madden players to do some time management NFL rosters. I will die on that hill 100%. And for those that don't know, I have this season when it comes to the Raiders, I'm very skeptical, and I don't see the vision. And that's probably the biggest thing on why I'm so skeptical, because I don't see the vision on what the hell's going on when it comes to the Raiders. And as we look at the schedule, now that this one's out of the way and they're 2-3, next week, like we just said, New England's coming to town. Then they travel to Chicago. Then Monday Night Football against the Lions. Of course, the Lions are balling out this season. And then the Giants come to town, which, McDaniels and Garoppolo had a moment on the bench, nowhere near as crazy as Brian Dable and Daniel Jones a few weeks ago. So there's opportunity here, to get some W's. But at the same time, like, how do I say this? The defense has been great, right? 3 turnovers last night against the Packers. But, like, these teams aren't offensive juggernauts. And both of these teams, specifically the Packers and the Raiders on Monday night, were trying to give the game to each other. And somehow, some way, that touchdown pass that he was open, if he would have hit him in stride, that was underthrown, he was able to make the interception. I'm not trying to discredit a defense that had 3 turnovers after only forcing 1 this entire season. But it's just like, big picture wise, if we go and beat New England, which has been dominated, Bill Belichick, that was his first career home loss of 30 points or more, his first blowout home loss. They had a pathetic showing for the past 2 weeks. We know the drama and all the noise coming out of Boston. And I just asked you about Mac Jones and Bill Belichick and who deserves more blame. And is Bill Belichick getting fired? Like, these are 2 teams in the Bears and New England that are dumpster fires. Even if they beat the Giants, which, they haven't had the greatest season, but a couple of these games are playing tough and they're professional football players, and there's a lot of parity in this league. Like, even with all that, we still haven't played the Chiefs. We still got to play Miami. Like, it's just Minnesota. Like, there's teams on here, even with Justin Jefferson going on the IR. Like, it's just like, big picture wise, again, what does it matter? They don't scale up against these teams. We've only scored 17. Like, what's going on? We can't score points.
I'll say this: the way they're winning now, while the defense looks great, as you said, I agree. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, even against bad teams, because even a bad team here or there will score 24 points, and if the Raiders can't score more than 18 a game, they're in big trouble. I would say, looking at the next few games, I expect the Raiders to go at least 3-2 in that stretch. But I'll say, for the people who are marking the Bears game as down as a W, be careful, because Justin Fields has thrown for 8 touchdowns and I believe just 1 interception in the last 2 games. I know it's against the Commanders and the Broncos are a dumpster fire, but don't sleep on Justin Fields. I had him improving this year, and I think there's still room for him to improve for the remainder of the season. But as for the Raiders are concerned, I don't know what it is. I don't know if because the regression to me is the red flag. The offensive line is not blocking well, run blocking or pass blocking right now. They replaced Jermaine Illuminar with their Mumford at right tackle last night against the Packers, or Monday night against the Packers. Greg Van Roten, the right guard, needs to be replaced, in my opinion. The Raiders need to go out and get another guard if they want to get their run game going. Josh Jacobs, while he had his moments against the Packers, if they're still one-dimensional, and as shaky as Jimmy Garoppolo is in the pocket, they're going to lose to bad teams, because with that one-dimensional offense, all you have to do is sit back on your heels and say, we're going to let Jimmy Garoppolo beat us, because we know if we force him to drive down the field 75 yards, he's prone to throwing an interception. And as I said, people wanted to say, oh, Jimmy G is a winner. Oh, he was in San Francisco. No, he was with a winning franchise. He was with a winning football team. Jimmy Garoppolo, if you separate him from that, he's a very low-end starting quarterback in this league, and I think people are seeing that right now.
$33 million, by the way. $33.8 million, if we're correct. And I know that's a whole nother discussion, because Derek Carr was owed a massive bag as well. But sometimes you take a lower end. See, this is the polar opposite, right? The Lions went with Jared Goff, and people were like, $20 million, that's crazy. And look at what's going on now. And I guess the Raiders were kind of thinking the same thing. A little bit more expensive with the 33 mil again with Garoppolo, but it's just not turning out that way. And the roster construction, I don't see it. And very quickly before we get out of here, Devontae Adams, 4 catches, 45 yards last game, was asked about it at the end of the game and was said, hey, I get double teamed by every team in this league. That's how good I am. But you find a way to get the ball, and that goes for all great wide receivers that demand that attention. And Josh Jacobs obviously hasn't had the best season this year, and the offense, period, has been struggling. When you look at some of these key players, how do you think this frustration, if this season goes the way that we're saying it, because they just won, and this has been a very negative tone, and in my opinion, rightfully so, how do you think this is going to play out when it comes to the locker room and the morale?
I think at some point, if Jimmy Garoppolo keeps turning the ball over at the rate he's turning it over, you gotta have to put out Aiden O'Connell. I think, and it sounds weird to say a rookie 4th-round pick could kind of save the locker room, but I'm in New York, as you know. I've watched Zach Wilson let down the Jets defense time after time. Now, I know the Jets defense isn't as good as it was last year, but last year when I watched Zach Wilson, I watched the body language of that defense. You could tell the defense is thinking, Zach Wilson in that offense is going to let us down again. I'm not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is at that point right now, but when you turn the football over as much as he's turning it over, you kill the spirit of that team, and your defense is wondering like, look, what do we have to do? How many extra possessions do we have to give you for you to score 20 points in a football game? So if they don't score 20 points against the Patriots, Bears, Lions are tough. The Giants or the Jets defense is also tough, but if they don't score 20 points within these next 5 games multiple times, I think you start to give Jimmy Garoppolo the side eye, and you start to give the nod to Aiden O'Connell and say, hey, kid, get ready to lace him up because you might be starting soon.
I can't help but laugh because it's just
Keeping it real.
crazy. It's crazy. Because it's true. Like,
Mhm.
it's true. And the coaching staff and Josh McDaniels said that you go down 1-4, things start to get very real, which is a little bit of a weird quote too, by the way, because at 1-3, things are very real, or even 2-3, things are still very real. Especially with some of the frustrations. But for those listening on the radio, we got to pay some bills, but we'll be right back with Moe Moton. And for those still watching here on the Sporting Tribune today, Moe Moton joins us, NFL writer for Bleacher Report, host of Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey original podcast that is fantastic, especially for our Raiders fans to go check that out. And a couple other places as well that he'll get to plug before he gets out of here. Let's see, because I need to throw some positivity in because they won the damn game. All right, they didn't lose it as much as they wanted to. Defense stepped up big, 3 turnovers. You mentioned it's not really sustainable, but was there any signs of life or things that you can point to be like, okay, maybe Tyree Wilson or somebody? Is there something we can point to be like, okay?
Robert Spillane. I gave Robert Spillane a lot of criticism. Now, I know his interceptions weren't the most athletic interceptions where he's leaping up to snatch the ball out of a receiver's hands, but he had 2 picks, and one was straight into his chest. One was off of a tip ball for Marcus Peters. Robert Spillane's been actually pretty decent. I thought he was going to wind up losing his job at some point to Amari Burney, the rookie 6th rounder, but it looks like Robert Spillane is going to be solid next to Divine Diablo. The other thing is Amik Robertson. How could we ignore that? We talked about it before. Underthrown ball, but he still made the play. Shortest guy on that defense makes the big play to seal the football game. I had Amik Robertson getting cut in the offseason. Turns out he's still hanging around, still making plays. Just remember, he was a ball hawk at Louisiana Tech, so you start to see a little bit of that. Nate Hobbs wasn't able to play on Monday. Amik Robertson steps in and steps up. But they got to get Max Crosby some help. And I think there was a report from Dan Rossini of the Athletics saying that the Raiders are looking for a pass rusher. If the Raiders can get a decent pass rusher opposite Max Crosby, because Malcolm Kuntz did get nicked up in the game, I think that defense could continue to take steps forward under Patrick Graham. A lot of people wanted Patrick Graham ejected from the D coordinator seat 3-4 games into the season, and it looks like his unit is starting to turn around again. Only 1 touchdown allowed in the last 6 quarters, and some of those quarters was against the Chargers' 7th ranked scoring offense.
I have a question. The Raiders trade for a defense, somebody on that defensive line to bulk it up. What are you willing to give up for that? Because, you're patching up a tire that's about to implode. Right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. The first person that comes to mind is Hunter Renfrow, simply because they're not using him. Hunter Renfrow is getting 1 or 2 targets a game. If you're not going to use him, let him go and give him to a team that could use him and value a wide receiver and hopefully give you a pass rusher in return. The other guy who dangle out there is Jermaine Illuminar. I've been a big supporter of Jermaine Illuminar, but as I said, they basically benched him for Thea Mumford on Monday night. So you could send him somewhere else where a team that needs patchwork help on their offensive line. I know he's had his struggle against the top tier edge rushers recently, but if another team thinks he can maybe play guard or be a better pass protector on the inside and sees value in him, package him with a 3rd round pick, package Hunter Renfrow with a 3rd round pick, and maybe you get a decent pass rusher. Maybe somebody like Carl Lawson with the New York Jets, because he's been out of that rotation with their crowded defensive end position.
Speaking of the Jets, we'll close out with this one. Again, next week hosting New England. Then they travel to take on the Bears, the Lions. They got the Giants coming to town, and then they make a trip to MetLife to take on those Jets. With that set of games here in the middle of the season, how do you see those playing out for the Raiders?
As I said, I think at least they have to go at least 3-2. I mean, the Patriots lifeless. They've been outscored, I think, 72-3 in their last 2 games.
Whew.
They should beat the Patriots. The Patriots have no offensive life. I know that's funny coming from a guy who covers the Raiders, but the Patriots to me are worse. The Bears could be tricky. The Lions, I don't, I hate to say it, I don't expect the Raiders to compete with the Lions, who are scoring a bunch of points. But the Giants and the Jets. Again, I'm in New York, so I'm watching these teams week to week. The Raiders could beat both those teams. I say 3-2 when it's all said and done.
The Jets got heart though, man. Like they got heart. They fought for their coach.
They
fought
do,
for-
but they got Zach Wilson at quarterback. I can't. No. Nah.
It's crazy because if you turn on the radio in New York, they're like, hey, we can't. They got Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, we can't lose to Jimmy Garoppolo. But that's why they play the games on the field. Before we get out of here, since it is your first time here on the Sporting Tribune today, be sure to get out your plugs.
Over at Sportsnot, all Raiders columns. I usually drop one once or twice a week. I have one coming out with Raiders trade targets because there's already trades going on around the league. As I mentioned, I think Carl Lawson is a target. They should even call the Commanders about Chase Young. I would call the Giants about Leonard Williams. Those are the top 3 names that I have that I wrote about on Sportsnot. As you mentioned, I'm over at Silver and Black today with Scott Branson. We drop episodes Tuesday and Thursday. Sometimes we have a shorter episode, Silver and Black Blitz today. And also he's on with our guy Murph from Raider Fan Radio on the post game. I'm also on Bleacher Report covering the entire league. I also do pre and post game Raider live streams. I also drop a stream on Mondays and Wednesdays, either recapping the previous game or looking ahead to the next game.
This man stays working. Glad you were able to make time for us, Moe Moton. Thank you so much for joining us. Yo, for Moe Moton, Grant Mora, Josh Fisher, I go by the name of Adrian Hernandez. Thank you so much for watching. Chargers on a bye week, but that doesn't matter. Raiders, Rams, this USC game, WNBA Finals. There's a PJ and NASCAR race in town. All the coverage on the West Coast, sportingtribune.com. Be sure to follow me wherever you see it on the screen, and we'll check in with you guys next weekend. This is the Sporting Tribune Today.